everyone, welcome to Sintra or Bust, our Best of Portugal tour. Now over the past 5 weeks we've covered about 4,000 miles across northern Spain and Portugal. We've ridden on every type of road from motorway to mud tracks, and we've ridden in everything from biblical rain to 40-degree blinding heat.
Now as you can see, we're just getting started on this trip. The red stuff represents our first few days, taking us to Ourense. This episode will see us head for the west coast of Spain and then to Guarda, which is home to the magnificent Trega mountain. After that, we'll head back inland and attempt to cross over into Portugal and then to our home for the night in Melgaco. Finally, we're going to journey down through the Penada Geres National Park to find ourselves some comfortable lodgings in Bento. Firstly though, and as usual, let's kick off with some fabulous B-road riding. Now the N-class roads or national roads in Spain and Portugal rarely disappoint, and today was no exception. As soon as we were clear of Ourense, we headed west to the coast on the N120. The road surface isn't racetrack quality, but it's a scenic road and pretty much free of traffic. Of course, that doesn't mean you can be complacent. As we found out, there are occasional hazards to negotiate. And if wild horses couldn't drag you to a stop, well, there's always a supply of four-wheeled tourists to keep you on your toes. As we rose higher over the hills, a little mist came our way, and I was concerned we might have a repeat of the bad weather over the first few days. The foggy stuff, however, vanished as quickly as it came, and left us a fantastic view of the coast on the way to the Trega mountain. The Trega mountain sits in Guarda, at about 1,000 feet above sea level. It's a direct drive up from the coast. We arrived at the top of the mountain to be greeted by a dramatically cloudy sky, but in full sunshine. The weather here, though, is subject to sudden change, and change it did.
It's a sunny day here in Trega, but as you can see if you look carefully, the view's obscured a little by some mist rolling in off the Atlantic. Isn't that dramatic?
Thinking I might get a better view if I went higher up, I took a walk, but I was wrong.
Look at that view, well worth the climb. Not. So welcome everybody to the Mirador to San Francisco. This is a viewpoint from Trega, and if you can see anything decent from here, you're a better man than I.
Now the point of all this climbing was that I was looking for an ancient settlement from about 100 BC, and no, this isn't it. But there was apparently a whole village to be discovered. Eventually we found it, purely by accident, and on our way down the mountain. It turns out we'd simply ridden past it in our eagerness to get to the top. At least the sea mist held off long enough for us to be able to take a decent look at the village, whilst Mike guarded the road, although I'm not sure what from. As we headed towards the Portuguese border, I thought I'd make a special event of it by building a 360-degree video clip. Something like this. This treatment would work really well with the iron bridge that we were about to cross at Valenca on our way to Portugal. Despite having researched it all ahead of time though, not everything went to plan. I guess there's nothing like a set of closed roads to tell you that you're just not invited.
No, we can't go down there.
Time for a quick replan, courtesy of the team at MRA. It wasn't quite the fanfare arrival that we'd hoped for, but at least we were across the border and headed for our overnight stop in Melgaco. It had definitely been a day of ups and downs, quite literally in some cases. And we were all looking forward to hanging up our bike gear, taking in a leisurely dinner, and getting ready for our assault on Penada Geres National Park and the beautiful village of Lindoso. The next day, our plan was to travel down from Melgaco through the national parkland and on to Bento, our stop for the night. However, over breakfast, we discovered some shocking news. To be honest, I can't even remember what the news article was about, but it kind of put me off my breakfast. Leaving behind us the somewhat disturbing wardrobe malfunction, we set off to discover the wonders of the national park. At this stage of the proceedings, we decided to follow the sat-nav, even if it took us down some, well, minor roads. Occasionally, I take a little time out to do slow-speed drills, hill starts, junctions and U-turns, that kind of thing. And sometimes, the time I've invested really pays off. Trying to navigate 300 kilos of bike, luggage and all the rest of it down a steep hill and on a tight bend can be nerve-wracking if you don't have the right technique. And once you're up in the twisties, there's a never-ending supply of interesting road shapes to make your life just that little more interesting. And with the village-based assault course out of the way, we were finally able to enjoy the fabulous countryside for which northern Portugal is famous. Note the layered, terraced vineyards, which are still cultivated by hand due to the delicacy of the soil.
It has to be a strong enough.
And as if we hadn't had our fill of slow-speed challenges, a closed road forced us to freestyle it through a village and through some very narrow streets as we made our way ever upwards. Check out the cobblestone paving, added in for a little extra excitement.
Going past you, going past you, going past you.
Taking into account the width of the panniers, things were beginning to get a little tight. And if this wasn't enough, the sat-nav chipped in with a little curveball all of its own. Yeah, like that was gonna happen. And so we came to the end of the road. It was either a quick 3-point turn or negotiate this very steep downhill section.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go down here, you'll rejoin it. Steve, give it a little bit of distance.
I mean, what's the worst that can happen? And no, our action cameras really don't show you how steep this hill was.
Yeah, clear, clear, clear.
And next up, an impossibly minor road. A cart track? Really? Time to circle in for a closer look. Hopefully, without getting T-boned by Mike. And now, check out our Steve's rather unusual outrigger cornering technique. Okay, enough of the slow speed shenanigans. It's time to enjoy the beauty of the Penada Geres National Park. Before you know it, we're back on the road. Just a straight run down to the village of Lindoso and a spot of lunch. At this point, my phone has started to play up, so I turned the screen off to preserve the battery life a little. I can still hear the sat-nav directions though, through my headphones. Seems like a good time to pull over and turn my screen on. And I wonder if our Mike's noticed that he's missed the turn. I'll pop down the road a little to see if I can see where Mike's got to.
Now just a minute. That's going too far.
I guess that answers the question. No worries, and we're kind of getting used to doing U-turns. On the way to Lindoso, we discovered a variety of roads, all great fun to ride, but very different in character. And before you could say Jack Robinson, we'd arrived in Lindoso, home to some rather unusual architecture. Now, bear with us, because this is audience participation time. Lindoso village boasts a ruined castle and a whole bunch of these stone structures. Your task, should you accept it, is to work out what they're used for. And no, none of us on the tour got it right either. If you thought they were some sort of burial chamber, you'd be in good company. But wrong. It turns out that they're actually grain stores, and the legs were to keep them off the ground, to keep the contents dry. Concentrating on more practical matters, there was no food to be had in Lindoso, so we hit the road again, hungry but hopeful. Arriving in the village of Brufa, our progress was somewhat hindered by cows walking in the middle of the road. This only served to make me more hungry, so we looked for a place to pull over, check the map, and maybe find somewhere to eat. Somewhat unbelievably, initially I failed to notice that vertical sign which announced that we'd arrived at a really posh restaurant, and one with fabulous views over the surrounding countryside. Time then to abandon the bikes and take advantage of an expensive but really top-class meal before hitting the road again. Hunger abated, I felt I was able to appreciate the fantastic views afforded by the balcony road over the Penada Geres National Park. For me, this is a touring as good as it gets. Lovely weather, fantastic roads, and great sights. As we make our way to our final stop for the night, let's take a moment or two to appreciate the scenery with a little added music. So finally, we found ourselves at the Bento Hotel, a very luxurious place to stay, and after 6 days on the road, very welcome. As luck would have it, it was my turn to blag the single room, and although I took no pleasure in it whatsoever, I had to banish the others to room 101. All good things come to an end, but please do join us in our next episode, where we're headed for Porto. We're expecting some new arrivals to the team, and the possibility of some intelligent conversation.